has fallen. For South Africans and thousands across the world, Oscar Pistorius was a hero. His story was truly unique. To be without legs and achieve the almost impossible, to excel in a field where you were not supposed to excel in. So when the world received the news that he had shot and killed his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp, another almost impossible happened. He stunned the world again, but this time he was no hero. Like so many others before, superstardom became a living hell for Oscar. Dr. Demartini, human behavior specialist and author, is here in studio with me to discuss fallen heroes. Welcome back to Leading Opinions.
Yes, thank you.
You wrote this amazing article on fallen heroes, which really piqued my interest. Share with us some of the insights of that article.
Well, our society tends to want to look up to people and find their heroes. That's just part of our nature. We're looking for things that support our values and to give us ambitions and go towards goals. But the thing is when we actually find the person that we think is the hero, there's another side to him. If I walk up to somebody and I said, "You're always nice, you're always kind, you're always amazing, you're always this, and you're never the opposite," they don't feel that that's true. It's not true. If I said, "You're always nice, you're never mean, you're always kind, you're never cruel," they wouldn't believe it. And if somebody said that to you, you probably wouldn't believe it. But sometimes we have this fantasy that people are one-sided and they have all the hero characters, but they don't have the villain characters. But the real truth is we always have both. And anytime we allow one to get out of control, we always know that hubris and aggrandizement and pride before the fall comes. And so instead of having to go and put people on pedestals and eventually put them in pits, better put them in our hearts and keep it balanced right from the beginning. And it's better for people in the limelight that get fame and fortune to keep themselves there. Because if they don't put themselves back in balance and they don't have governance on themselves and they start to aggrandize themselves, they're headed for the fall.
So
and this is what happens.
Psychologically, something is happening to a person that's achieved superstardom, which is different from ordinary people?
If they buy into it and think they're over and above and superior and special, they're on their way down. Some of the greatest stars that I've interacted with, who are very humble, very inspired, love what they're doing, they don't take it serious. They don't puff themselves up. They know that that's people's perspective, but they don't buy into the hype. They end up realizing they're human beings, they're working on their things, they're trying to master their skills, and they're very humble. Those individuals don't have the rise and don't have the fall. They become well known, but they don't buy into the pride and then have the fall. It's when you allow yourself to buy into the media's perception of you and get into a point where you're superstardom, that you're vulnerable. And that's when all of a sudden you're having to hide the other half of yourself and eventually it comes to the surface. All parts of yourself eventually are brought to the surface.
Did you follow the Oscar Pistorius trial closely?
I got to do some because I was traveling around the world as I'm doing it, and I was getting information from South Africa because I have an office here, and also seeing some of it on the news. But through articles I was getting some of it, through some clips I was seeing the other part.
And what did you make of it from a human behavior specialist point of view?
Any particular part?
Yeah, what stood out for you from a human behavior specialist point of view? And also, I think also in terms of the reactions coming through from the public, in terms of how he presented himself in court, in terms of the judgment that was passed against him. People were quite harsh. Justice has to take place. But what are your views?
Well, I think that anytime you're in that position, there's an expectation on you that becomes unrealistic. You expect to be sort of a superhuman. And, but what happens is in his own life, there was the other side. There always is. I never believe one-sided stories about people. I always know there's two sides, because I have that. I went through the dictionary and found out I had 4,628 traits. I was nice, mean, kind, cruel, positive, negative. I had everything.
Only 4,000?
4,000. I went through every one of them in the Oxford Dictionary. I found I had every trait. So that's why when somebody says something about me, if it's one-sided, I go, they don't know me.
Yeah.
I'm really all those things. I'm everything you could ever say and even more. So when I see those types of build-ups, I know that's headed for a fall. I've seen that in hero figures all along. I saw that in Michael Jackson coming. I saw that in O.J. Simpson's. I've seen this pattern in many of them. So anytime we do that, we build up fantasies and unrealistic expectations. Just like if we get in a relationship with somebody and we're infatuated with them, we've put these false expectations on them, and then when they don't live up to it, we're really resentful. Society on a collective does the same thing.
I do that.
Puts people on pedestals.
I do that as well.
And then they end up having a letdown. And now they're even more angry because they didn't match our fantasy. When in reality, a person that has reason knows that they have two sides and doesn't overreact. They go, okay, there's the other side. It doesn't surprise me. It's a nice balancing act. The more you see one, you got to have the other. It's part of life. And so a person who's more understanding of the laws of human behavior would not react strongly to that case and would just see the two sides. A person who had built a fantasy about him is probably going to have now reactions, can be really upset. And you'll see that that's probably in the court case, you'll see it's reflected that, and in society's media coverage of that, you'll see those two polarities. But the actual sentencing of that, I think, was pretty sound, actually, because when you realize that we can't prove one thing about what the intention is, but we can prove that it's happened. So the idea of him not having some sort of repercussion of that is probably not realistic. Nobody's going to tolerate that. If they were to give him, say, free, you're free, nothing's happening, there'd be a revolt. At the same time, if they put him away for life and made an example of him and went too far with it, then that's not fair either. So we don't really know all the factors in there. We don't know all the role that she was playing and he was playing. Some of it never got into the case. None of it got revealed. We don't know everything. So I think what actually occurred is a lesson for all of us. And the lesson that it's there is to not put people on pedestals or put people in pits, but to know that there's two sides to everyone, and to not allow ourselves to get too proud, because if we go into pride, we have hubris.
Sure.
The promising, as the gods see promise, they fall, as they say. The second we get cocky, self-righteous, and build ourselves up and think we're better and superior, we automatically are on the way down. I think that all this is trying to teach us how to have self-governance and how to balance our own perceptions and not puff ourselves up or beat ourselves up, but to love ourselves. Everybody wants to be loved and appreciated for who we are. I think the story in the case is trying to teach us, don't exaggerate or minimize ourselves, love ourselves. Balance the equation. It teaches us how to have a sustainable relationship dynamic with the society, and it allows us to not be the superhero, but allows us to do great things. Because there are many people out there that do extraordinary things that don't get puffed up and don't get all the hype. They just keep doing great things for society. I'd rather go down, and your immortality is not necessarily your local fame, but your impact that you have on history.
And also the other lesson in that is that even the rich and famous, they're just ordinary people. They have the traits that we have. They're capable of just about anything. The talk right now is people are angry that Oscar Pistorius is getting special treatment in prison because he's a superstar. Yes.
Well, unfortunately, that's how life is with the prison systems. When I studied the prison and criminology, the more income you have, the different prison type of system you have. And you also have to realize that sometimes a person that is notoriety, somebody who is in a normal prison, the average prison, could take advantage of him, and they could be the one that stabs him and gets notoriety, off notoriety. And so there is a special protection of a person that has notoriety in the prison system to save their lives too. So there's some rationale for why they end up having that, but at the same time, that's what money does. People they have cash, they have money, they have opportunities that people that don't have money don't seem to have. And that's the way I think ultimately life is trying to teach us equanimity within ourselves and equity between ourselves and others. Because eventually we all put on our pants and our underwear. We all basically do our normal human faculties and functions, and we're human beings. And we're here to learn that that's who we are. And I think that's what the lesson is. I think that's the message that we can get from the story.
There are many people out there who regard you as a superstar as well.
Well, I think...
How do you deal with that? Being adored, being loved, being respected. How do you keep yourself grounded?
Well, I tell them to call my girlfriend.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, call the girlfriend. I'm just a human being. I happen to be inspired by what I do. I love what I do. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing but researching and traveling and teaching and things. But I'm not worth putting on pedestal or putting in pit. In fact, if I see people starting to do that in my seminar, I will usually do things to counterbalance it.
The feeling of elation, do you experience
that? Yeah, because if somebody puts me on a pedestal and minimizes themselves, I'm defeating my objective of trying to inspire them. And I will automatically fall from the fantasy that they've created. So I haven't accomplished anything. And if I surround myself with that, I'll trap myself in my own illusion. And then I will be having to go, oh my God, I can't let people know who I am. I'd rather have people know who I am. I'm nice, I'm mean, I'm kind, I'm cruel, I'm open, I'm closed, I'm everything. I'd rather be that. That gives me the freedom to be me. And I don't have this hypocrisy between my private and my public life. And I found that that's a wiser way to be. And so I'd rather go and serve people, and if people respect that, than put me on a pedestal.
So you do agree that humility is a cornerstone to success, and that is also a fundamental lesson to take out of the Oscar Pistorius story.
I think that's the message. Because when he comes out, there'll be all kinds of reaction. But I'd be willing to bet from human behavior studies that he will go on to do something greater with his life. And he'll do something that will contribute and come back and do something that, but this time with a more balanced orientation and a more stable thinking process.
And that's always going to be there at the back of his mind.
Yeah, but I've seen some heroes that become the villains never get over the situation because they feel that they're the victim now. But the wise ones, which I think he will, I think he'll end up coming out and he'll end up doing something greater with his skills, his talents, and his leverage, and the people that he has. And so I think that now the question, because if he does, he can reclaim not the hero fantasy, but a contribution to humanity. I always say that it's wise to get up in the morning and ask yourself, what is it you can do that serves humanity on a daily basis, and how can you contribute? Because deep inside, our authentic self wants to make a difference. And if we go focus on that and realize that if we puff ourselves up, imagine this, if you're in business and you puff yourself up and you look down on your customer, you don't care about the customer, you don't look at the customer's needs, you eventually go out of business. Then if you minimize yourself, you'll sacrifice in your sale to the customer and you'll lose your profits and you'll be out of business. Neither one of them are sustainable. But having equity and having a balancing act and seeing that the customer and you are both trying to help each other in a transaction, a fair exchange, you realize that there's no reason to puff yourself or put yourself down. There's just something to appreciate the opportunity to be of service. And I think that's a wiser position to be in. And I think that all these events about hero and villain fallings are nothing more than trying to teach people that. And if we get that lesson, we move forward in life. If we don't, well, we have to go through the cycle again.
Sure. Dr. Demartini, it was a pleasure again. Thank you so much for sharing those valuable insights with us. Really appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of your stay in our beautiful city.
Thank you.